Welcome, everybody. We're just waiting for panelists to um, join the room, and we'll get started here in just a second. And so, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure you all do, what we're going to be talking about today is rethinking sales, marketing, and branding, so that it's really focused on relationship building. And this is a topic that I am super passionate about. And for those of you that don't know, I am Kasey Jones. I am founder of A Better Jones and founder Up. I'm a growth marketer, started my career in sales, and now help early stage startups accelerate revenue. And I'm a big believer in the power of relationships. So hopefully Raj is going to join us here in just a second, but I know we don't have a ton of time. So we're going to start with introductions. So Marc, why don't you kick this off? And who the heck are you?
Well, thank you, Kasey.
I'm Steve. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, Marc.
Marc Kitz, a sales coach. We, after 37 some odd years as a salesperson, sales manager, and coach mentor, now working with CEOs and founders of startups to help them become more comfortable and or more confident with selling.
Fabulous. Parna?
Sure. Thanks, Kasey. So I'm Parna, the founder of Brand & Buzz. It's a consulting firm that works with tech companies to build market credibility for the founders and their company, whether they're preparing to launch a company, raise funds, get acquired, or go public. To me, relationship is everything. Personally, as a startup founder, my business growth is all based on referrals and word of mouth. We don't do any traditional marketing. So I am super psyched to be talking about relationship today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And Raj, last but not least.
I had to move around because my kids were making too much noise. So, so welcome to Working at Home. Hi, everyone. I'm Raj Sharma. I am the CEO and founder of Public Spend Forum, and I'm a serial entrepreneur right now. Really, as part of our platform, advise lots of entrepreneurs on growth strategies, including how to build relationships with their clients.
Fabulous. So Raj, I'm going to have you kick us off for the next question. We'll kind of go back in reverse here. But so just to start this conversation and really kind of set the tone here, when you think about, sales, marketing, and branding strategy, how do you think about relationship building and its role in those efforts?
And a very good question. Kasey, I wrote a series, many, many years ago, and I used to use it as part of my training of sales professionals in my own company, my previous company. And it was, the title of the series was Stop Networking and Build Genuine Relationships. And the point of that was that, building relationships is not about transactions. It's not about thinking about what do I get from this person. It's really has to be approached from a standpoint of, first and foremost, what can I offer of value to that person that I'm meeting, right? And I think if we approach relationships that way, what can I offer? What can I give? And then second is, how can I learn from this person through every interaction? I think it just changes your mindset, how you approach every relationship, even if your goal is to sell to a customer, for instance. If you set up a meeting and you have a target customer and you approach that relationship, and that meeting from a standpoint of, I'm going to go in and offer as much as I can in terms of the knowledge, the expertise, however I can help this person. That takes the pressure off, right? Of, hey, I have to come out with some next step or next action, right? And then two, you can really be authentic and operate as you would in any other environment. So I think that's how I've coached people, and I've seen that work for me over time.
I really appreciate that because I think that's a strategy that is also a little bit less sort of high pressure for those founders and those people and those teams that maybe sales doesn't come as naturally to. And so when you are just more focused on that give first mentality, it really creates a completely different dynamic. And even if you don't close that deal, you do build a strong relationship and people remember that. And that's going to pay dividends down the line. Parna, what about you? How do you think about this?
Well, I think building relationship, like we were just talking, building positive relationship is key to success, whether you're an entrepreneur in sales, marketing, even in your personal life, right? I mean, here we are having a conversation, and I've met you guys in Clubhouse. You know, that's how we built our relationship. And Jason and Steve, of course, I've known them. Relationship, that's what it's about. So to me, it's really about the human connection. It's about getting to know the person, getting to know your goals, about your family. I can tell you that. So from putting on my professional hat, all the influencers that we work with, at least 50% of them, and that's a long list, 50% of them, I know their birthdays, their kids' birthdays, their anniversaries, their favorite food. And it's not something that I go out to write them down, but it's just part of that conversation and it sticks. And that, so sometimes when you're going back to them to pitch a story or to ask a favor or even do an introduction, that human side always helps kind of open doors, not just for me, but for my client and whatever the goal is. And then from a brand building side, I mean, that I feel is absolutely critical. I mean, not everything, as I think Raj was saying, everything is not transactional. Mm-hmm. It's, and for somebody who came to this country many years ago, I knew nobody other than my husband. So the fact that now I can talk to anybody and have this great network, no matter which area of my life it is, I feel like that is what has helped me get to where I am today. And also, I mean, one of the things that we do is we build personal brands and executive brands for individuals, for executives. That is so personal. Like, I have to know everything about them, including skeletons in the closet, before I even would do anything with them. So again, it's trust and relationship. I think that is the cornerstone of everything that we do. That's my 2 cents on what it means to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think so I'm very passionate about the brand side and also personal branding. And I think every founder should be investing in their own personal brand. And I think when you do it right, when you do it well, it is, and marketing is this way too. When you do it right, you do it well, you do it authentically. It's kind of like relationship building at scale, because people start to get to know you on this very personal way where they feel like they have a connection to you, even if you haven't met in person. And this is the magic of, the age in which we live. I was joking with a friend the other day who I've never met in person, but is an incredibly close friend of mine. And I said, even though you live across the country, he would bail me out of jail. And we met because I was a guest on his podcast and we became incredibly close friends. We've done business together. We've passed referrals to each other. And so it's kind of amazing about this relationship building. And to your point, Parna, is it's professional, but it goes so much deeper than that. And it really can be such a rewarding part of life, not just business. Marc, how about you, especially from a sales perspective? I think this is absolutely key. How do you think about this? How do you talk to your clients about this?
Well, this is some great points by Raj and Parna and yourself. I think, this area is kind of connected to where I see a lot of founders and CEOs of startups are connected to where their reluctance to get going, with selling it, to be comfortable. It's as you know, and that 90+%, of selling really is listening and learning. It's sort of acting on your curiosity, asking questions, and Raj made a point about being interested in the other person, their company, whether it's B2B, B2C. I saw there was a question in the chat, and it's many, as you all know, many startups, not all, but many are started by engineers, or operations, people with operations backgrounds. So by training, they're largely trained to be the one providing answers. And so it's little bit of a mentality shift, to not immediately be providing answers, but to listen and learn and gather information, so you can find opportunity and know how to navigate. And that's the real key, is as you build the relationships, you go from connecting to having a bit of a rapport, and they start to develop some trust, and will open up with information that will help you identify opportunities and figure out how to sort of get there.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, that you don't go from 0 to 60 in a relationship, right? It does take some time, and so you do have to, be patient and be willing to invest in that connection and in learning more about the other person. I saw this recently where someone was talking about how we should all spend more time being interested in others and in things rather than trying to be interesting. And there's something, it's a very simple way of looking at it, but when you do come to a conversation with genuine interest in learning about somebody else, not only is it very validating for the other person, also, by the way, there's all kinds of statistics around people actually think you're smarter when they talk more. So there's some magic there too. It makes you look good. But it does help then over time, you build that relationship and you be able to spot opportunity where you can add value. Yeah, Marc.
And one other point to add is that I'm sure as any of the CEOs, founders out there that have put some time into selling, that they probably know that they're one of 15, 20, maybe more salespeople, if you will, trying to reach the same clients. So just by taking the approach, however, as you describe it, by trying to listen and learn first, they're differentiating themselves from the 15 to 19 other people, who are just trying to push something, just trying to sell something.
Without a doubt. And people don't like being sold to, but they love buying. And so if you can help connect them to the purpose, the pain of why they might be interested in your solution or your product, it completely shifts that feeling and that conversation to something where they feel like they are actually driving it. And I think this is why learning the art of asking great questions can be sort of the game changer in all of this. So one of the things I really want to make sure we talk about is, the metrics side of this. How do we know if we're actually being successful? And I will say, it doesn't have to be a metric, but how do we measure our success in relationship building? And I think one of the challenges with sales, but also especially marketing, is, we've spent probably the last 10 years being hyper data driven and metrics driven. And that doesn't always make it easier to focus on the relationship. Sometimes it forces us to kind of stay at that surface level. So I'm curious, and Parna, why don't you start this one? How do you know if you are being successful with relationship building, and how do you advise your clients who are thinking about this?
Sure. So I think the way we measure, like every program, you have to identify what the KPIs are and what success to you. So, for example, when I'm talking to a sales team, for example, and they're struggling with, how do I do what I call social selling, which is relationship selling essentially. So it happened several times where I will come in and I'll kind of do a presentation on, this is social selling. This is how you build relationships. Don't just make that cold call and expect the CTO of a large company to call you back just because you called him or her. So this happened a couple of times. I'll do my presentation and I'll give them like small tips, which is kind of a no-brainer for those of us who do it. It's like, all right, so identify the digital footprint of that CTO. Find out if that person writes a blog, has done a podcast, like find out a little bit about them. And then you reach out to the person to say, hey, I read your blog or I heard about this, great job. Rather than, hey, you want to buy my product? So it so happened that several times after a presentation like that, especially in this case, when the sales guy, he was trying to reach a prospect of a really large audio company and they wouldn't call him back. So he did his research. 30 minutes after the presentation, he came running into my office to say, guess what? The CTO not only called me back, we have a meeting set up. So I said, what did you do? He said, oh, he writes a blog. And I read his blog and I commented and I called him and I said, loved your blog. Voila, the meeting is set up. So again, it's little tips of, be human. Like this is what I talk about all the time. You got to humanize everything. It's all about people. So I think that's like one example. The other one I would give is, like I was saying before, like not everything is transactional, right? The fact that I literally came from another presentation, but somebody I know, a really good friend who I met online, invited me to come and speak to a group of women at Google, which is what I just did. And I came right from there. So again, it's not transactional, but it's relationship. For somebody like me to go and speak with some really smart women at Google is just an awesome stuff. And I hope that and I also talked to them about relationship and online presence and how do you build your personal brand. So it's kind of those little things to say, okay, that worked for me because it's satisfying.
Yeah.
Probably will not bring any revenue, but that's okay because I'm doing this for a friend and I'm hoping to help another, a group of women do better in their career. So I think we have to understand what is the KPI and how do we want to measure it. Is it revenue? Is it relationship? Is it building your brand? Is it you making an impact? So I think it varies depending on who you are and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And I think it's also really key to let it take some time.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not an overnight thing. It builds momentum over time. And so you do have to be willing to kind of invest in that longer term vision, I think. Raj, how about you? When you think about this, how do you measure success?
Yeah, a couple of ways. One, I think it's important to, as any entrepreneur, anybody who's a leader in a company, I think time is of limited, it's scarce, let's say.
Yep.
So I think knowing who your target audience is really important. And the ecosystem around them. So not just specifically who am I trying to sell to, but what's that ecosystem of relationships look like, right? And I think having that network idea is really important. Second thing is, I don't tend to look at the end outcome in terms of, hey, did I get sales and meetings and all of that? I tend to look at it from a standpoint of, one, am I in a better position understanding the perspective kind of people that I'm engaging with, right? And that goes back to listening and understanding. So I think to me, it's always about, do I understand their problem better than I did before I met them, right? Do I understand their needs better, right? So if you go back to that whole philosophy of ethos, pathos, logos, like in communication, pathos and understanding a person kind of authentically, as well as kind of what pain points, et cetera, they're experiencing. to me, that's always the goal, because if I can't understand their pain, what they need, I can't help them, right? And then the second point I measure is around, what can I bring to them? Can I help them in some way? It might be it might be somebody I can refer to them, right? Because I don't have the expertise, which is okay. Many times I won't. Other cases, I might have expertise that I can bring to the table, right? And I can offer that. Now, I'm not expecting anything in return. So I think I try to approach every relationship holistically from that standpoint. What's my audience? Do I really understand them? If I don't, then I'm not doing my job. I'm talking too much. I am so caught up in my own insecurities, and I'm taking over all the meeting time when I go in there. And instead of asking them, what are your goals? What are your challenges, right? What's preventing you from getting there? And just stop talking at that point and listen for 30 minutes, right? That's what I coach all my, a lot of people that are trying to. So I think that's where I start. And then, ultimately, yes, you have to see the end outcomes and everything and the KPIs around that. But I feel like if you start there, it starts to add up really quickly. So.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think also, look, most of our audience here are early stage startups. And that also means even if you don't make that sale, listening to what your target audience is going through, this is phenomenal product research. And I think one of the most critical mistakes I see founders make is this assumption that you know everything about your target audience, oftentimes because you're solving a problem you once had. But P.S., you're not your target audience. Your target audience wouldn't have the gumption to then go build a product to solve
Exactly.
the problem. They're a completely different person. And so asking those questions and really learning, yes, it can help you build a relationship, help you build your business, but it can also really help you direct the product and direct the whole direction of what you're doing.
And I think to that, just one last point on that, I would just add, Kasey, is that I think, just to reinforce what you said, is that you should never assume you understand the problem fully, because the problem is always evolving, is changing. And going back to what you were saying, asking the right questions, I always tell people, your product is great, but nobody cares. At the end of the day, nobody cares about your product. I don't care. I stay up 16 hours a day on working on my platform and AI and all that, but nobody cares about all the things I do. At the end of the day, people care about the pain they're experiencing and what can I do to help them solve it, right? So stop talking about your product, take time to understand your customer and their problems, and then they will give you permission to talk about your product later, right?
Yeah.
They will actually listen. And goes back to that trust, right? They will say, wow, okay, now I want to listen to this person because they let me talk, right? That's how it is. So.
You got to earn that right. I think you nailed it there. So Marc,
I may just interrupt for 1 second. Sorry, Marc. To what Raj was just saying, and as you were, a lot of times the founders think they know their market. They feel like this is their market fit. But then once they start talking and they launch the product, very quickly they'll realize, or many of them, including myself, realize that the market that we thought was our target audience is not.
Yes.
Or how you enter the market is also very different. So I think, to Raj's point, that listening not only makes you understand more and build your relationship, but it also gives you the right market fit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marc, how about you?
No, so this is a great part of the conversation. In terms of measuring success early on, particularly with a CEO or founder who is really, let's say they've been really reluctant to start the conversation. They're okay once it gets to the middle and having some discussion about their product or service. I'm not really looking, we're not talking a lot about metrics. What I'm looking for a month, 2 months down the line is a different look on their face in the sense of comfort and confidence. So they go from fearful and I don't know where to start and how to open up a conversation to no problem. I can do this. I don't have it perfect, but I'm absolutely much more comfortable. And I've seen that sort of transformation a number of times. And once you get there, and I've seen it a lot, that the CEOs and founders of startups are more comfortable can be than they give themselves credit for. They're closer than they give themselves credit for. Once they kind of get to that place where they're more comfortable and confident, then you can start having what I'd rather call goals of how many quality calls did I have? It's not particularly when you're doing the selling yourself, it's not a volume game, 50 calls a day that you go, sort of a millimeter deep on. Much better to have, I'll make up the number, 4, 5 great conversations where you learn a lot and maybe get next steps. That's what's going to help you get closer to closing deals.
I think that's a great point. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate both about sales and personal branding is, frankly, I don't care who you are. I don't care how confident you are. Both are scary. You're putting yourself out there in a way that is like, it's a little terrifying. And what's kind of magical about when you do it and you do it consistently is you face that fear every single time you, I don't know, create a post on LinkedIn and you hit submit, or you pick up the phone and you have that call and you start to realize, wait, I can handle this. I can actually be pretty good at this. And you start to realize you're a little bit more of a badass than you thought you were. And it plays into a bunch of other parts of your life where you realize, like, yeah, it's scary, but I can do it. And that helps you realize you can do a lot of other things that you might be a little bit scared of.
Agreed.
It's like dating too. That first introduction is always scary.
Yeah, absolutely. But it gets easier as you go, and you start to realize that, we're always so worried about what other people think of us, but guess what? They're so busy being worried about what people think of them that oftentimes they don't even know that you flubbed your words or you misspelled something or whatever the case may be. And people are a little bit more willing to give you the benefit of the doubt than I think we often think. Okay. We only have 3 minutes, so we're going to keep this short. But what's one thing you wish every founder could understand about relationship building and sales and marketing? Marc, why don't you start us off?
I think, maybe a sort of, I think it's to realize that you're closer than you give yourself credit for. Sorry for repeating something and to try it.
It's worth a repeat.
Worth it and repeat and keep trying it. Get some guidance from somewhere on maybe a few questions that, there was a question in the chat about how to start the conversations. I think you surprise yourself.
Yeah, I love it. Raj, how about you?
I was just, I repeat the same word over and over again. I say, just remember this and you'll have amazing relationships. Give. That's all. And forget about anything else. Just approach everything from a mentality of giving. And a lot of good will happen with that.
I love that. Parna?
I'll say connect as humans, because we are all people. It's people who are building products. It's about relationship. It's humans who are buying your products or selling to humans. So keep it human.
Yeah.
People to people connection.
I love that. And I will also say, look, you know what? The 3 of us, I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak for all of you. Send us a connection request on LinkedIn. If you have follow-up questions, use this as an opportunity to sort of flex those relationship building muscles, because it is a muscle. It gets easier as you do it more. And I've also learned in my experience, people are really, really willing to give advice.
Yeah.
And so if you reach out and you say, hey, you know what, I really respect you because seems like you know a lot about this or that, wondering if I could get 15 minutes to just ask you a few questions, you'd be surprised at how many people will jump at the chance to help someone else. And so when in doubt, flatter the ego and then ask for advice. Don't ask for the sale or kind of promote yourself, because most people actually really like to give, turns out. So yeah.
I was going to say that's actually the first principle I had is, like, I think just to your point, be authentic, be yourself. You don't need to be, nobody wants to know some robot, some, sales guy, some executive. They just want to know you, right?
Yes.
I want to know you, right? I don't want to know some like fake person. So I think that also lowers the pressure. You don't need to be anything but yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I assumed we were going to get kicked out of here. That's why I was like sort of rushing us. So, you know what? Why don't we look at Derek had a question. What are some good resources, examples of questions and protocols to help navigate and build these new connections? And so I'm wondering if anyone has some kind of go-to resources that they tend to recommend for these things.
I'll jump in. Certainly, I got a couple of ideas. One is whether early in my career, I took Dale Carnegie twice. So they kind of create certain paths, for you. And I certainly have a kind of a flow of questions that I share with with people that I meet in these kind of connections. So happy to connect offline and share some ideas and questions that I've found useful myself.
That's great.
I would say, there's a quick site I'd recommend. Top of mind is actually this person used to work for me, and he's got 5.2 million subscribers on YouTube. He's an awesome guy. It's called Charisma on Command. Many of you probably have seen his videos. Some of them have 20 million, 30 million views. But, he's mastered the art of charisma and something that we all want. Right. Yeah. Is like to be, and I think Charisma on Command is great because he talks about a lot of, he left my company at 25 and he had so much wisdom at that age and he started building this. And I think he's got a lot of wisdom there, a lot of videos that are free. So check that out on YouTube.
That's amazing. Okay. I guess we're done.
Yeah, I think we're done, and I don't see the live anymore. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, this was a fun conversation. It was good to kind of get to know you. You three.
Yes, same here.
Hey,
Same
thank
here.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of running around the house and
chased by your kids.
Being authentic, it's like we're doing some reconstruction in the house and remodeling, so it's like always trying to find a space for these things.
Well,
Yeah.
if there's one thing we've all become much more accepting and understanding of, it is work from home life. I think I think that's one of the positive developments of COVID life is we're all a lot more understanding of people being a little bit hectic in life. That's just how things go these days.
And we are more agile as individuals.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, guys. So nice to meet you. Kasey, thank you for moderating. Good job.
Everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
Cheers.